Our conversation, Minister. Systems drive behaviour, so we've got the consequences of 100 years of industrial relations system that's basically based on conflict, which drives managers away from managing their business and managing conflict. Sometimes is sparked. So we have to improve the quality of Australian management and take them away from fighting union bosses and back to leading and enabling employees who serve the business's core, the customers. We need to fight with overseas customers, not with fellow Australians. So arguably one of the biggest opportunities we have in this country for the future is unity to battle our overseas customers. Is there any prospect of this government embarking on such a path that I mentioned earlier, comprehensively reviewing industrial relations, setting up comprehensive reform, simplifying it, and then making very sharp, severe penalties for those who breach them, instead of the current morass and tangle of industrial relations mess?
Well, as I said before, Senator Roberts, I certainly agree with you in principle that wherever possible, legislation should be as simple as possible. Sadly, that's not always able to be done as much as people would like. What I can say to you is that I absolutely agree with you, and the government does as well, that the more we can encourage cooperation in workplace settings, the better. I think that's better for employers, it's better for workers, and you know, if you look around the world, most countries that have more cooperative workplace laws tend to have higher productivity, which is good for business, higher wages, good for workers. Higher safety, innovation, because that encourages that exchange of ideas from the shop floor through to management. And that bill that we've got before Parliament at the moment is exactly about trying to drive that. We've seen the results of having a highly conflict-based IR system, especially over the last 10 years, where wages haven't grown, productivity hasn't grown, and that's what we're wanting to try and move to, a much more cooperative system. And, you know, I'm not sure if you were here yesterday when I was responding to Senator Cash, but, you know, I know that there are claims that are being made that this bill is all about increasing the number of strikes. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, this bill that we're putting forward retains the existing laws around strikes and the things that have to be done, and it actually imposes extra measures that need to be taken before protected action, whether it be strikes by workers or lockouts by employers, can happen. You've got to, there's a requirement that before a strike can happen or a lockout can happen, that the parties have to go to conciliation at the Fair Work Commission to try to actually sort it out with an independent umpire there. You've got to give 120 hours notice of industrial action for a whole range of bargaining examples. So we're actually trying to remove the conflict from the system and try to encourage more cooperation, more agreements at the workplace level. Because, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the stats, Senator Roberts, that the percentage of Australian workers who are covered by enterprise agreements has crashed. Because it does, because the system isn't working, and that's what we're trying to fix. It's not working for workers, it's not working for bosses. You know, you've got more and more people who are on award wages, which is obviously, you know, pretty low in most cases, rather than being able to negotiate higher rates of pay. So that is actually one of the really core principles.
What you're doing fundamentally, Minister, is you're adding complexity, because there's an attempt in this country in industrial relations to try and regulate everything, cover every aspect of every business, and it's physically impossible. It's intellectually impossible. It's morally bankrupt. Yeah. So I think we need to come back to something simple. That was the basis of my question. Something simple but comprehensive and with severe penalties for breaking. At the moment, if you've got a good lawyer, you can break anything.
Yeah. No, look,
that's what we've got to get away from. You're adding more band-aids. I'm not talking about this legislation. I'm talking about in general. Will we ever see a day where there's going to be industrial relations that gets back to the primacy of the workplace relationship between employer and employee? That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it won't surprise you to hear me say that we also think that it's not just about the relationship between an individual employer and an individual employee, because it goes to that power imbalance that we were talking about earlier, and that's why...
I meant employees and employers.
And
it doesn't matter if they have a representative or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But let's get focused on the work and competing with
Well, again,
foreigners.
that's what this bill and some of the other IR reforms we have intended is about fixing the bargaining system so that workers and employers can come to agreements about what works best for them. So I'd be delighted to take you through it in a bit more detail.
Well, thanks. If Senator Roberts, if it's okay, we're running a bit over time. I know the next section there's also a deep interest. But if you do have one final question you want to ask, otherwise I'll...
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.